The four aspects, the secret of God's name, Yud He Vav He, and the 10 sefirot, as explained by Rabbi Ashlag, blessed memory, in his haCHochma, the first introduction he wrote, the all-inclusive introduction to Kabbalah. The terms that we're going to need are the Ayn Sof, God's infinity, more precisely his endless, infinite light. The Maatzail is the Emanator, the capacity of God's bestowal, emergence from the Ayn Sof. It's all bestowal, it's all emanating. The Emanator is basically God. The Maatzail is the emanation, the passive form of Maatzail. Maatzail is active emanator. Maatzail is passive emanation. So the Maatzail is basically the origin of the The Maatzail is the origin of the creator, and the Maatzail is the emanation, similar to creation, but a more primal stage and inseparable from the Ayn Sof. So, it's not, even though it's not technically correct, you can very well say the Maatzail is the creator and the Maatzail is the creation. Chochma is wisdom, Bina is understanding, Zeir Anpin is literally the small face, it's a divine image, a partzuf in Kabbalah, basic idea in Kabbalah, building block of Kabbalah. Zeir Anpin is a partzuf that contains the 6 lower sefirot, it's comprised of the 6 lower sefirot, Chesed, Tiferet, Yesod, Chesed from kindness all the way down to Yesod, foundation. Malchut is the 10th sefirot, the lowest sefirot of sovereignty. Shefa is God's plenty or abundance. It's literally a flow similar to light, but it's more concrete. Shefa is more like plenty or abundance. It's what God gives us. Ohr haCHochma is the light of wisdom, giving, bestowing. It's the major kind of light coming from the Maatzail. The Ohr DeChassadim is the light of kindness. Ohr DeChassadim, light of kindness, the light generated from the emanation. God's light can only emerge from the emanator to the emanation. The emanator, the Ayn Sof, to the emanation, engendering a complete separateness. God's light can only, from the emanator, from the Maatzail, can only engender a complete separateness by going through the process of 4 aspects. These 4 aspects are called Chochma, wisdom, Bina, Zeir Anpin, and Malchut. I'm not going to translate anymore. I gave you the glossary, and you could rewind to get the definitions. So the 4 aspects are Chochma, Bina, Zeir Anpin, and Malchut. The sum total of the promulgation of God's light is called Chochma. Chochma is the entire measure of the light's intensity in this emanation. When Chochma wells up or strengthens itself in order to draw a greater measure of God's Shefa, God's abundance, it's called the second aspect, or Bina. There are 3 subdivisions in Bina, 3 aspects within Bina. The first aspect of Bina is when Bina is one with Chochma and indistinguishable from Chochma. The 2 are one. The second aspect of Bina is the welling up or the strengthening of the will that's revealed. This strengthening reveals the root of the vessel of reception. There is a dissemblance now, that is to say, there's a kind of thickness that is different from Chochma. The more a concretized form of the light of wisdom. It's engendered by a strengthening force within Bina that is mostly subsumed in Chochma. So it's somewhat separate, something separated, separate will. That's the second aspect in Bina. The third aspect in Bina is the essence of the Shefa that it attains by means of its separate will waking up. Thus, its light bears a different name, and it's called the Ohr DeChassadim, the light of kindness, which is a much lower grade than the Ohr haCHochma, the main kind of light, the light of wisdom, which promulgates from the emanator alone. The Ohr DeChassadim, the Ohr haCHochma is just coming from the emanator. There's nothing has to do with the Maatzail. It's just from the emanator. There's no partnership. So the Ohr DeChassadim comes in part from the emanation after it wells up and mentioned. So, it's giving back what it receives. So that's what I mean by in part. There's a partnership going on. So the strength, which is the aspect of the thickening, as it were, of the light of the second. So let's go back. The Ohr DeChassadim comes in part from the emanation after it wells up, as is mentioned. So the strength, which is the aspect of the thickening, as it were, of the light of the second aspect is called the Ohr DeChassadim. These three aspects of Bina are called Bina. It's the second aspect from Chochma. It's Chochma, Bina, Zeir Anpin, and Malchut, and Bina has three separate subdivisions. Over it one more time, the three aspects in Bina. The first aspect, Bina is one with Chochma. They're completely together. Second aspect, there's a welling up of a separate force. There's a reception. Bina is about reception. And so there's already a dissemblance between the Maatzail and the Maatzail. We call that a thickening. Bina is thicker than Chochma. The third aspect, we're borrowing language from the physical world. We have no other recourse, and we try to explain these physical descriptions in a more spiritual way. So the second aspect of Bina wells up, and it's a separateness, and it reveals the root of the vessel of reception in all of this Chochma. There's a dissemblance. The third aspect in Bina is the essence of the Shefa attained by means of its separate will waking up. Thus, the light has a different name. It's called Ohr DeChassadim, light of kindness. It's lower than the haCHochma. Okay, and now we're going to continue. Go ahead. Indeed, even though the second aspect wells up and actually reveals its own will, still it cannot yet be a complete vessel of reception. This has to do with the crucial matter of light and vessel. They're completely dependent on one another, and they can't exist without one another. The light is hidden and the vessel is nullified, and if the vessel is hidden, the light is then nullified. Therefore, the vessel of reception is not complete when it is still subsumed in Chochma, and essentially the one and the same with Chochma. Therefore, the Ohr DeChassadim that Bina draws by means of strengthening itself is completely nullified in Chochma, like a flame of a candle in a bonfire. Therefore, the Ohr DeChassadim that further spreads from Bina outside of its own aspect and also wells up and strengthens in order to draw an increase of Shefa in an intensity greater than the measure of its promulgation from Bina, and then the vessel of reception is complete. So, for this reason, we have a third and fourth aspect, Zeir Anpin and Malchut. So, when the vessel for the essence of the light that spreads forth from Bina is still in potential and has not yet strengthened itself in order to increase, that's called Zeir Anpin, or the third aspect. And when it actually strengthens itself, it's not just potential, but actually does it and strengthens itself to receive the increased Shefa, that's called Malchut. Malchut is the complete vessel in the Maatzail, the emanation. Now it is comprised of light and vessel and fully emerges from the Maatzail, the Emanator, to become a separate Maatzail or emanation. So these four aspects are the secret of the four aspects are Chochma, Bina, Zeir Anpin, and Malchut. It's the secret of the four letters of God's name, Yud, He, Vav, He. Yud and He is Chochma and Bina. Vav, the last two letters, Vav, He, are Zeir Anpin and Malchut. These are called the 10 sefirot, and as mentioned, Zeir Anpin includes the 6 lower sefirot from Chesed to Yesod. God bless.